understand the business of sports. Hey, everyone. Here on the TD Report, I'm your host, David Combs, here with my co host, Tony Kennedy. Uh, Tony, you're the brains behind this operation as far as us doing this podcast. This was your idea and something that you've wanted to do and something I've wanted to work with you on. Sometimes we do the show and we have 9 times out of 10, we do the show. It's a great time. Today, one of the Saturdays that we've had since we've done the show, three young men lay dead at the University of Virginia tonight because of an on-campus shooting. 5 people have been shot. 3 of these young men are dead. We are going to dedicate the show to Lavelle Davis Jr., Devin Chandler, and Deshaun Perry. Deshaun Perry is a junior defensive end, also a linebacker. He hails from Miami. Devin Chandler's hometown is Huntersville, North Carolina, and Lavelle Davis is from Dorchester, South Carolina. Another young man who's been identified. As of this time, we don't know who the 5th victim is. Mike Hollins is a junior running back. He is in stable condition. This in from his father said that the doctor said he's going to recover. They said because of his age and physical conditioning, he's doing exceptionally well. This shooting took place on a class trip. There were some young men and women that went into D.C., the D.C. area, on a media studies field trip. So they went up by bus. When they came back, that's when the shooting started. One gunman came onto the bus and was shooting people as they were either sitting on the bus or they were trying to leave the bus. But again, 3 men lay dead today. This is not the type of thing we want to be talking about on our show. We want our show to be fun. It's about sports. These young men were at UVA, not just to play football. They were there to get an education at one of this nation's finest institutions, finest public schools. I'm a proud alum. Tony, you went to our in-state rival. You went to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was touched by gun violence. And you understand as much as I do how this really hurts a campus, a school community, whether you went to school there now, whether you went there 10 years ago, whether you're going to possibly send your kid there, like I am. I'm trying to send my son to UVA to play, he wants to walk on and play baseball there. So today, thanks, Jody. Jody Coleman reached out with some prayers for UVA. Tony, this is a really tough situation to talk about because this is gun violence. These are young men and young women that were either there or witnessed it or were victims. And whether you were a victim and got shot with a bullet, whether you were there and saw it, you're a victim too. Okay. The parents of these young men who are now making funeral arrangements at a time when they should be talking about, hey, what are you going to be doing for the springtime and summer? When you're coming home. Even more immediately, we're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving break, right? This is that time of year when we put our arms around family and friends, and these young men, their family and friends won't be able to put their arms around them. And we on this show dedicate it to these families, and we put our arms around you literally and figuratively. Tony, that's one of the hardest opens I've ever had to do. Thank you, Mrs. Adderley. Barbara Adderley just reached out. This is one of the hardest shows I've had to do, Tony. It's not something I don't care if I was getting paid for it. I don't want to have to sit up here and tell you the 3 young men are dead.
Yeah. Listen, UVA strong. You guys were there for us when we had the tragedy, April 16th, 2007. And it's just, these guys, they've done everything right. They're
Yes.
trying to get their education. They're playing football, and they still find their way into senseless violence. And we're going to have people, oh, well, yeah, it's our second amendment right and all that. I don't want to hear that crap. You can save that crap for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And they want them, oh, it's political, this and that. No, it ain't political. This is humanity. Their way of saying to solve this is to give everyone guns. I tell you what, when we were there, matter of fact, my visit to UVA, there was a huge fight. There were a fight, and there was a fight. All those guys survived. There was some bruises, some black eyes, some whatever, but no one was shot and killed. This is senseless. This has to stop. We say it every time, but what are we really, really doing? I mean, I'm so disappointed in our society and the people in our society. Don't come on here. Oh, well, we got the right to carry. Their idea was to give every college kid a gun. Are you kidding me?
It's on a day like today, if somebody comes at me with, hey, we need more guns out here, why would you want more bloodshed? You see what I'm saying? I want less. You see what I'm saying? UVA to me is dear to my heart. It's a place where whenever I go back, I feel welcomed. It's a second home to me. Okay. DC is my home. When I went to UVA, my father felt like he was sending me somewhere safer than where we lived. You see what I'm saying? When we were here, the district was considered the murder capital. And hey, you should be going away to UVA and you'll be safe there. So I'd be a liar if I told my son that today. He wouldn't believe me. We as parents, we as adults, whether you're coaching, whether you have your own podcast, you're trying to work with high school kids, whether you're someone like yourself who's been a mentor to so many youth, the thing that youth need from us is for us not to lie to them and for us to be real with them 100%. Are there guns out here? Yes. I'm going to have to explain to Harrison, listen, you're going to argue with somebody at UVA, maybe you be on the pickup court or something. You don't know if that person has a gun. Okay. And that's not the way that I had to experience UVA. It's not fair to kids like my son. It's not fair to these young men and women that are going to possibly go there to play a sport that someone has to tell them, hey, listen, there's a possibility somebody might have a gun. I mean, seriously, all those parties I went to at UVA, there was never a gun at a party. I swear to God on my child's life, never a gun at UVA like that. At a party, a little get together after a game or walking through campus, going into a class or from a class. It's people would think that the people at UVA wouldn't do something like that. And the problem is you've got to think about the real world that's out here. And, maybe I've lived a bit maybe I've been living outside of reality, Tony. And maybe this is that splash of water in my face that wakes me up. You see what I'm saying? Maybe that the idea of that gunman that happened at Virginia Tech all those years ago, that was in 01, right?
07.
07. So we're talking 15 years ago. My son is 17 years old. This happened when Harrison was 2. So now University of Virginia and Virginia Tech are now forever linked in that basically a terrorist activity has happened on their campus, a mass shooting. And these are two places that you would never think about that. What do you think about when you think about Virginia Tech? Excellent school. You think of the Hokie Bird. You think of the great people that go there, right? That represent that fine university. You think the same thing about the University of Virginia. This is just, to me, it's unfathomable that this happened. I've talked to many, I've been taking calls from UVA people all day. Hey man, can you believe this? Oh my God, I can't believe it. Today someone reached out to me. I reached out to my former RA when I was a first year. He was my RA. His son is there at UVA right now. He's a first year. So he just came back from fall break, trying to, finish up some mid-semester exams before you come back to fill up on some turkey. He's a local guy here in Northern Virginia. All I could tell him was I said, hey, Rudy, I hope everything's all right with your son and hopefully he's safe. And this was during the shelter in place. I forgot to mention that, everyone. UVA was under a shelter in place today for a good portion of the day because they were trying to apprehend the shooter. They didn't know where he was, and they didn't want students walking around on a Monday with books under their arms going to class. Doesn't even sound like college, does it, Tony?
Nope.
Nope.
It really doesn't, man. So, normally we sitting over here and we talk about sports, but today, that stuff is not important. I was talking to one of your one of the alumni, and I was saying they may cancel football game, and I know the early basketball game, but I kind of think that they need something to get them back in, because this stuff here, man, and when you sit around and you think about it so much and you grieve, so you're going to need kind of an outlet. So, this football team is going to be hard, man. When you lost 3 teammates and you have another 2 teammates that are shot and injured, I mean that's hard, man. That's hard. That's
First year UVA coach Tony Elliott. I can't say that I would want them to play, because it's not my place to say it. It is, he has to take the temperature. He has to speak to 3 sets of parents right now and talk to them and see how they feel about it, right? And then he has to go and talk to his kids. 9 times out of 10, I would imagine the kids will probably want to play. Okay, but if Lavelle, Devin, and Deshaun's parents felt strongly enough about this and said, "Coach, we don't think it's right for them to play on," UVA won't play. Okay, they will take the temperature of the parents of the deceased. They will show the respect and love that those families deserve. Because the thing I think a lot of people don't understand outside of the show, Tony Elliott is responsible for these young men. Is if these young men had done something wrong, right, he'd be responsible for what they did.
mm-hmm.
Okay. He is also, even bigger than that, Tony, he's responsible for their physical safety.
Yes,
and when you have to look into a parent's face after their child has been injured because of negligence, it's one thing if somebody broke their leg on the football field. Hey, Mrs. Smith, your son broke his leg on the football field. He's at University of Virginia Hospital. Got the best doctors looking in for him. We're going to make sure he's okay, and we're going to get him home as soon as the doctors release him from the hospital. This is entirely different. The phone calls that Tony Elliott, Carla Williams, the athletic director at UVA, I think it's Tim Ryan, I think it's the school president. The phone calls that these gentlemen and ladies had to make today are about the hardest phone calls that a school administrator, an athletic director, or a football coach has to make. So final. There's nothing that he can do. There's no reprieve from this.
Mm-hmm.
It's final. That's it. They've passed on. And all of the money that comes into a sports program means absolutely nothing, because the quality of a program is about the kids that are in it and the men and women that lead that program, the coaches, the administrators. And what are you supposed to tell? What are you supposed to tell these young men's parents? Hey, listen, we have to play. We have a contractual obligation. We have to make this money. No, you don't. No, you don't. UVA, it's not an SEC school, but I can guarantee you, UVA doesn't need the money that damn bad. So the record of the season, competitive balance, because other teams that UVA would be playing would be trying to play to become bowl eligible potentially, or might need that game in order to, get enough games so that they can make a bowl. Forget all that, right? UVA basketball just starting their season. I don't know if their game can be rescheduled or if they can play it at a later date down the way. But Tony Bennett and Carla Williams probably sat together and said, "Hey, there's no reason we should play tonight."
No.
And as far as I know, I would imagine the University of Virginia grounds are very dark. There's not a lot of people out. There's probably some sort of vigil that might happen this evening. But the normal business of what you would expect on a normal Monday night around a college campus is not going to happen. Okay, it's there should be raised voices of happiness and hope. You know what I'm saying? That's what you should be feeling, that energy that you get from being around a college campus. But, on a day like today, it's just hard to fathom, Tony. I don't believe it happened. I still don't believe it happened.
Yeah. Just speaking from the experience of going through that at Virginia Tech, and man, it's difficult, man. For the parents to have sent those kids, and they're doing very well. I mean, when you're talking about African American kids going to a prestigious school like UVA and also playing football, man, you're on a different level, because it's difficult playing football, and it's difficult in the classroom. And those three, the future was bright. I mean, you stay eligible to play at UVA. Means you're on track to graduate and be eligible. You're on track to lead a successful life. I mean, you have lost potential kids and grandkids, and I mean, just all kinds of. It's just not fair. I mean, that's really not fair. I mean, over however this guy was feeling, who he was a former walk-on from 18. I'm thinking he might have known them, or it might have been. I don't know. They will get some of the info, but this is just not fair. I mean, we think about all the stuff that we have going on wrong in our life or whatever else. It don't mean crap. I mean, you just lost 3 kids with promising futures over what? I mean,
Well, and that's the thing, Tony, where if you almost cross over into where you want to kind of know what happened, and the parents of the young men deserve to know what happened. But as an outsider, me looking in, I mean, I don't want to know that badly. I mean, it wasn't my personal loss. And for me to ask, it almost feels for me to ask disrespectful. It almost feels disrespectful, like I'm asking somebody's personal business. I can read a newspaper or article, or just like anybody else. When that information comes out, I'll be happy to pass it along, and we can talk about it on the show. But just right now, today, it just feels kind of raw. Like it feels like I'm asking something of somebody that just lost somebody very close to them, and the loss of human life here just seems to me so disrespectful, Tony. These young men were no older than 22 years old. They had their whole lives ahead of them. Like you said, get a job and get married, have a bunch of kids, and I just can't fathom somebody losing their life that soon. You know what I mean? For those of you who are watching the show here on the TD Report, we're talking about the very tragic and unfortunate shooting that occurred down at the University of Virginia on Sunday night. Word came in to us, very, very early this morning when it started to hit the news reports, that 3 young men have, 5 people were shot. 3 of these young men have, it's been confirmed, have died. We're going to dedicate the show to Lavelle Davis, Devin Chandler, and Deshaun Perry of the University of Virginia. They played on the University of Virginia's football team. Now, UVA played on Saturday. They played against Pitt. It was a home game, that it doesn't matter now, but UVA lost. And then these young men were back on a bus to go on a field trip for a school class. I think it was a media relations class. And they came to the DC area and did the activities that went with the field trip and came back. To go from the football field and then right back into the academic arena, as University of Virginia people, we use a term called work hard, play hard, right? Where you might have a bunch of stuff to do for a bunch of classes, but you're also going to get out there and, recreate yourself, whether it be playing on your football team or playing intramurals, or, I mean, let's be honest, or partying with your friends. But we call that the work hard, play hard motto at UVA. And these young men that passed on lived that to the fullest, as far as being able to play on the football field, compete in intercollegiate athletic competition, and then a mere hours later, comport yourself, get yourself ready, and then hop on a bus, a charter bus, to do part of your classroom activities, on a Sunday. And the bus got back in around 10:30 on Sunday back to the University of Virginia's campus in Charlottesville. And those kids expected fully to maybe get a bite to eat, go home, get some sleep, and get ready for class tomorrow, which would be today. And that's it. They're gone. It's, that's not a phone
So
call.
on the bus?
What's that?
What actually? So when the bus stopped, the guy just came up on the bus?
Some reports say that he was actually on the bus. Some reports say that, because they say he was a student, still a student. Some reports say that he was waiting outside the bus and then walked onto the bus. So it's kind of unclear as to what exactly it was, but the shooting occurred on the bus. So one of the young men that I mentioned, that one of the survivors. Go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
Were they the only people on the bus were the players that were left?
No, it was a mixed class. It was no. The end. What I'm told is that the shooter shot people that he knew. He wouldn't have. He wouldn't necessarily have known the other people. The only people that were shot were football players. So, one of the young men that I mentioned that survived the shooting, Mike Hollins, he was shot in the back. So he must have been trying to get away or possibly shield somebody, but he was shot in the back, Tony. Just awful.
Did it say what kind of gun he used?
That wasn't in the news report that I have. I'm reading from ESPN, but I haven't heard anything as far as what type of weapon it was, or how many shots were taken. So I just can't imagine somebody being in I always think about what would happen if I were at UVA and this happened to me. I was thinking about it today. And if I were in an enclosed area like that, I don't know what I would do, Tony. The terror. Okay. If this happened, say, for example, at the BBS or down near one of the dining halls or something, I feel like I might have a chance to get away. But if you're on a bus, you're stuck. There's nowhere to go but out the windows. And those windows aren't easy to open, Tony. You know that. The charter buses, you're trapped like a rat. Okay. So just from a standpoint of logistics, this was about as cowardly a shooting as you're going to see, Tony. Those kids had no chance. None. Okay. I mean, it's one thing if you want to shoot into an open area, like out on a vista near campus, or during, on a quad where people would be walking, where people can get away, right? But this isn't what happened here. This was premeditated, clearly. This was premeditated, and the young man that shot these people, the young man that shot these young men, he meant to kill them. He meant to kill. He was not intending to wound anybody. You don't shoot. How big is the aisle on a bus, Tony? This wide, maybe two body widths.
2 bodies width. That's what it is.
That wasn't somebody threatened me and I just felt like I had to shoot. No, man. This was, you meant to trap people in an enclosed area and fire shots. And he was counting on the fact that nobody else would have a gun. Okay. This isn't in an urban area where there's a potential where somebody else might have a gun. Like if you're at a bar or a club, if I pull a gun out, I at least got to think maybe security would have a gun, or maybe there's an undercover policeman in here, or maybe one of the other patrons has a gun on them. Okay. This was not a fair fight. Okay. This was a slaughter. And, it's about, like I said, Tony, it's about as cowardly as you're going to get. Okay. Anybody can pull a gun out and shoot a bunch of people that don't have a gun. That doesn't I'm not impressed by that. That doesn't give me tells me you're not strong to do that. I pull out a gun and there's 10 people there and I shoot 10 people, right? That doesn't make me a freaking hero. Okay. It just doesn't. It doesn't, you know, there was no threat to him in terms of what could have happened to him or anything, because he was the only one that had a weapon.
Wow.
So I just can't imagine that scene, Tony. When a charter bus like that pulls up, there's people there waiting to meet it and so on and so forth. You know, the people that were on that bus, the young men and women on that bus, were expecting to get into their car and drive back to their place on campus, or somebody was waiting there to pick them up. I don't know if the university bus runs that late, but just in general, if you lived on the other side of campus, you probably called somebody and said, "Hey, can you pick me up? I'm going to be at Culbreth when the bus gets in. I need a ride." "Oh yeah, I got you, dog. Yeah, I'll come through there." Okay. The person that came to pick those young men up or whatever, look what the scene that they had to see. Okay. And we're going to hear more in the next few days as the Charlottesville police unravel this and then, put out more data and more information for the media. And I'll make sure for the show, I'll make sure I get as much of it as I can. But just in general, Tony, just the sheer amount of terror that was. I can't imagine what it was like at Virginia Tech when the shooter started shooting. Okay. How many people died in Blacksburg? Was that 16 people?
32, 33.
32. God damn. And he was using a high-powered rifle, right?
So basically, it was 10 times more than what passed away yesterday.
Right.
I mean, one is too many. So, we want to
absolutely. Let's make sure we're making sure that's clear, everybody.
Yes.
Young men and women shouldn't be dying on college campuses. It just shouldn't. And for many people in their lifetime, they would never see something like this. This is as often as this happens in this country, mass shootings. The chances of you or me seeing it is very, very small. Okay. But we live in an area where the potential for something like this happening is it's strong because of we're near the nation's capital. That's where we live. So these type of things can happen. We just don't ever expect them to actually happen to us. To witness it, to even know somebody. So I'm 52, everyone. I know I look older, right? Because I got the gray. A lot of my friends that have children that are just a little bit older than my son have kids at UVA right now. So the conversations, the fear that they have, just worrying about your kid, I can be honest with you. Sometimes my son doesn't answer his phone, right? Because he's a teenager, right? If he were at UVA right now and he didn't answer his phone, I'd be absolutely going batshit crazy. I'd probably be in my car heading down there to try to find him. You know what I mean? So as a parent, if you can't get through to your kid in something like this, I would imagine, what is it? How many freshmen are at UVA? Probably UVA's what? 15,000, 20,000 undergrads. There's probably about 4,000 freshmen, 5,000 freshmen. That's how many, and everybody's family is calling down there, right? To make sure that their one child is okay. So I would imagine circuits were probably busy. They probably crashed you probably crashed the internet, all of that activity and traffic going back and forth on phones or text or whatever. And if you can't get through, you're sitting there freaking out. Hopefully the young men that died, hopefully their families didn't have to go through that. As far as being in agony for so long. But obviously you don't want to hear the news that your son or daughter has been killed. And unfortunately, that's what's happened today. 3 people died at UVA on Sunday night. 2 others have been shot and are in stable to serious condition at the University of Virginia Medical Center. I'm your host, David Combs, here on the TD Report with Tony Kennedy. We're not talking sports right now, folks. This is real life that we're talking about here. And on one of the sadder shows that well, probably the saddest show that we've ever had to do here, is to actually talk about the loss of the the senseless loss of life and injury of young people trying to better themselves through education. You go to college, undergrad especially, to start your academic life as far as furthering your career. You're there to learn who you are. And let's be honest, do a little partying. I mean, it's college. You meet people. A lot of my friends have met their wife there or their husband there at UVA or whatever college they went to. One of these young men that passed on that was killed was a transfer student from the University of Wisconsin, another fine university. The University of Wisconsin had tweeted out, once a Badger, always a Badger. Obviously, they wished him well on his way to finish out his college career here at UVA. And, you know, I feel bad for coaches and administrators that actually knew these young men, their professors, their instructors at the University of Virginia. I had the opportunity to look at an interview with Lavelle, where he was talking about what a family atmosphere he felt at UVA and how much he loved being there, how much he was looking forward to next season. And, you know, it was very sad and poignant, but he talked about, man, I can't wait to see when coaches' kids grow up and we can watch them maybe play football and stuff like that. They thought so much of Coach Elliott that they were talking about his kids like they were his younger brothers and how he really enjoyed being around them. And he talked about how he enjoyed and loved being around his family. He was a very family-oriented young man. I'm talking about Lavelle. It was, and you could see that Lavelle Davis had presence, Tony, I'll send you a link, but you could see that this young man had presence. He was a very tall young man, 6'7". Obviously, there were opportunities for him at the next level, given his physical gifts, right? Because, the University of Virginia football team's having a rough year this year, right? But to be a wide receiver, 6'7", about 210, 220 pounds, that's prototypical, right? So he was on I've been talking to some people, they were like, Dave, he was on some radar, right? Because when you have that type of body, when you have that type of ability, the NFL will find you, okay? Like you say, Tony, if you go to Jackson State, if you go to UVA, they don't care. Wide receiver, 6'6", 6'7", great hands. And that's just the football side of it. But if you looked at this interview, Tony, this is the type of kid that you want to marry your daughter or your niece. You know what I mean? He looked like a fine young man. Just the way that he carried himself. So to see young men, college people die like this, as a parent, I can't keep my son under my thumb all day. I can't keep him in my hip pocket. He deserves to have his freedom to be able to go out and do the things he wants to do. He's earned it. You get these good grades in school. I can't tell him, hey, I want you to stay in the house all day, every day. Don't go out. That would not be me being a good parent, Tony. And yes, I'm going to have to let him do the things that he wants to do and meet new people and be out in the community, whether it be at UVA, whether it be at Stanford, Harvard, wherever he wants to go. But we as the adults here, when we tell kids, hey, this is a good school, you'll be safe here, you'll have a good time here, we have to give them that caveat that, hey, maybe somebody will have a gun at a party. You don't know. Mm-hmm. And kids don't just need that routine, but they also need to feel safe and secure. And right now, we're not able to tell them that right now. It's very difficult as an adult, as a parent or mentor. All of my nieces and nephews have graduated, at least undergrad. And some of them have moved on to graduate school. Harrison is the youngest of all of my nieces and nephews, and he's my child. So my in-laws, he's their youngest grand. So he hasn't gone to college yet. So it feels like something's been ripped away from University of Virginia students right now. A lot of their innocence has been ripped away.
Yes, it has.
You know, when me and you went to school, you went to Tech. I visited Tech a few times. I didn't have to worry about somebody having a gun down there at a party or walking to and from class. That's just terrible.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not. Yeah, it's something needs to be done. I mean, something seriously needs to be done. I don't know what. I can't put my finger on it. I'm not going to hit you with, all this stuff, but the answer is not putting more guns in people's hands. That's not the answer. So, however you feel, that's not the answer. The answer is not for everyone to have guns. I mean, that's not going to work, folks. I mean, I don't.
no, no. The last thing that I would advise any undergrad or any student in a college situation, if something doesn't work for you, something doesn't go right for you, for God's sake, don't pick up a gun. I mean, seriously, do not pick up a gun. There are just too many lives at stake, too many people around for you to be dealing with your problems like that, right? As I will tell my son Harrison, hey, listen, if something doesn't work out for you at school and you don't feel safe, just give me a call. Give Big Tony a call. Someone will be down there to pick you up in 2.5 hours, 3 hours, have you
Yeah.
back home in 6, and then we can figure out what's next, right? You can't make that type of decision to pull a trigger and end other people's lives or end your life or whatever. It There's nothing that important that cannot be solved. And it
No,
definitely can be solved without a gun and
no.
ring out gunshots on a college campus. It's unfathomable to me, Tony. Okay. Um, I would tell anybody, I would tell anybody yesterday, hey man, where should I send my daughter? I say, hey, if you can get her to UVA, get her down there. I would say the same thing tomorrow. I would say the same thing today. But it's just a little more difficult now when you think about kind of what happened, right? But my faith is in UVA. My faith is that it's a great school community with still great people down there that and smart people that they will come up with a way for this not to happen again. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to say that there's a gun ban or anything like that. I don't know about that. But the university community has to come together and say we're not going to let this happen to any of us again.
He had another thing before. He had a concealed. They had caught him with some kind of concealed violation before.
He has a concealed weapon. The shooter has a concealed weapons charge on his record. We don't know what the weapon was, whether it was a knife, whether it was a gun. But the fact that he was allowed to still be on campus around university students, for the Commonwealth's attorney, it's going to be a difficult question
Yeah.
as to should he have been allowed to even be on campus. I know that when you go to a university, they do a criminal background check on everybody. Okay. And if you have a weapons charge, if you have an assault charge, whatever you have from back in high school, you have to answer for that just to be admitted to be on campus. Because again, I talked earlier about Tony, how Carla Williams, the athletic director, and Tony Elliott, the football coach, they're responsible for student athletes. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
safety. So imagine, as I mentioned, UVA being a school with about, I don't know, 30,000 students, undergrad and graduate school. The school president, in essence, is responsible for every student that's on his campus or her campus, right? You're responsible for their safety. It would be irresponsible to have somebody with a criminal record on your campus. And whether it was a high school fight or what's that, especially a weapons charge. Absolutely. Yeah, that changes everything. This isn't, if you told me, oh, there was a high school fight and he was arrested for assault. Okay. All right. That happens. I mean, I'm not condoning that, but I'm just saying that's a different situation. But you're talking about somebody that had a concealed weapon charge.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that charge had been adjudicated, if he had gotten probation for it, what happened? Or did somebody in the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office drop the ball? I don't know. But then the question now this is for the lawyers, is going to be, was this young man even supposed to be on University of Virginia's campus? And if he was not, and there was some negligence involved, you could see some wrongful death lawsuits.
Big time.
Because in the legal field, when you're talking about responsibility for children or responsibility for young people, it's about not what you know, it's about what you should have known. So if somebody at UVA should have known that there was a concealed weapons charge or a concealed weapons conviction, if they should have known that, then yes, there's a possibility there could be some wrongful death actions against the University of Virginia, unfortunately. And I'm not just being a journalist here, I'm being a realist. Okay. I carry a professional license, and there are certain things that if I don't tell a client that I know or should have known, I'm still responsible for what I should have known. Right. So yeah, Tony. I don't know how often we're going to touch on this on the show, everyone, but whenever we get new news on this, we are going to bring it to you. So please bear with us. Tony, I got to go pick that package up, but I really didn't want to. I'll be frank with you guys. I really didn't want to do this show, man. I don't like to talk about stuff like this. This hurts my heart, and it's very hard for me to keep my composure and not be upset that three people are dead, 2 people lay injured in a hospital from gunshot wounds, and another young man has ruined his life. He's going to be going to jail for a very long time, Tony. There's no way he's going to get out of this. He's ruined his life. No, he's ruined his life, where he should be looking at getting him a great job and moving on with his life and having great memories of UVA. But now he has ripped away the innocence of the entire student body, and he's taken 3 lives and irreparably damaged even, dozens more family and friends. Forever. So everyone on the TD Report tonight, I'm going to sign off. Tony, thanks for letting me get on tonight and talk. I did all the talking. I promise you guys, next show on Thursday, we're going to bring you football. We're going to be talking about the game tonight. The Washington Commanders are going to be playing the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. Philadelphia Eagles are 8-0, and Washington's getting a key piece back tonight. Jahan Dotson is supposed to be playing. Unfortunately, Chase Young will not be playing, but they do get Jahan Dotson back. We expect a great game tonight. If you're watching it, definitely check it out, and reach us on Thursday when we come back on the show. We get things a little bit back to normal, but for right now, pray for UVA. 3 young men have been killed. 2 young men lay in a hospital in Charlottesville right now, recovering from gunshot wounds. And our hearts and prayers go out to the families of the deceased. This is just absolutely awful, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. Tony, close us out.
UVA strong. Pray for
Thank
UVA.
you, Tony.
All right,
we
Dave.
appreciate it. Yeah, I'll hit you from the road. Okay?
All right.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Mrs. Adderley, for me, please.
I sure will.
Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. All right, folks. This we wanted to do is bring you the show. We wanted to get it from alum. My co-host Dave, out of respect, to make sure he's hurting right now. We all are hurting. But we will be back Thursday. We just wanted to kind of update you if you didn't hear on the story. Is 3 were killed, 2 were injured, and you heard from Dave. They were on the bus, and pray for that community. UVA strong. You see on the thing, please go in, ask what you can do, and just pray that this senseless stuff stop. This stuff has to stop some way, somehow. It has to stop. And if we're not doing anything to help it stop, then we're part of the problem. We will do everything in our power to help and aid anyone as far as mental health or whatever. Folks, check on people. Getting close to the holidays, ask if they are okay. Visit with people. It's Tony Kennedy. I'm out. UVA strong. See you.